You thought you could break me, Oliver. Her voice, sharp as a blade, echoes in the grand central hall, moments before the wedding bells were meant to ring. Kendra Marshall, a brilliant black woman, stands poised to marry Oliver, her seemingly perfect fiancé. But in the shadows of the historic city hall, she overhears a chilling truth. Oliver's vows are a sham, his love a calculated ploy to siphon her trust fund for his empire, dismissing her as temporary. What unfolds is no ordinary betrayal. It's the spark of a breathtaking revenge that will leave jaws on the marble floor. Will Kendra dismantle his lies with surgical precision, or will her heart falter? Subscribe now to dive into this saga and drop a comment sharing where you're tuning in from and what time it is. What's your guess for how this unfolds? Stick around, her vengeance is just beginning. You thought you could break me, Oliver, Kendra Marshall whispered to herself, her voice a low ember of resolve, unheard beneath the hum of anticipation. The central hall of the historic City Hall was a cathedral of ambition, its towering glass dome catching the late afternoon sun, casting golden rays across the polished marble floor. The air buzzed with the murmurs of nearly 200 guests, city councilors, philanthropists, and tech moguls, all gathered under the city's flag for what was to be the wedding of the year. The space where laws were forged and legacies carved was tonight a stage for love's supposed triumph. Kendra, at 32, stood radiant in an ivory gown that clung to her like a second skin, her long, straight, silken black hair cascading down her back, shimmering like a dark river under the dome's glow. She was not just a bride, but a beacon, a celebrated architect and founder of the Marshall Heritage Foundation, a black woman whose brilliance and integrity had reshaped the city's skyline and its soul. Oliver Prescott waited at the altar, his tailored suit framing a physique as polished as his reputation. A tech prodigy with a disarming smile, he was the city's golden sun, his charm a magnet for investors and admirers alike. Their union was the stuff of headlines. A powerful white entrepreneur, captivated by a fierce, intelligent black woman whose passion for community rivaled her talent for design. To the world, they were a dynasty in the making, their love a bridge between worlds. Kendra's heart swelled as she adjusted her veil, her fingers brushing the smooth cascade of her hair. 15 minutes remained before the vows, and she craved one last quiet moment with her father, a ritual to anchor her before stepping into forever. She glided toward a side corridor, her gown whispering against the marble, her hair swaying like a pendulum of grace. The old council chamber awaited, a historic room of oak-paneled walls reserved tonight for family. She expected her father's warm embrace, his steady words. Instead, as she neared the heavy wooden door, left slightly ajar, voices slipped through the gap. Oliver's voice, smooth and sharp, cut the air, followed by the familiar chuckle of his best friend Trevor. Kendra froze, her breath catching. Curiosity tugged her closer, but instinct screamed for her to flee. She pressed against the wall, her hair a silken curtain shielding her from view, and listened as her world began to fracture. "The Marshall Heritage Foundation is our golden ticket," Oliver said, his tone laced with venomous smugness. "Her name opens doors, contracts, grants, you name it. We'll funnel the funds, clean and quiet." Trevor's laugh was a jagged edge, egging him on. "And Kendra?" Oliver continued, his voice dropping to a cruel whisper. "She's temporary. Her naive passion for community is cute, but it won't buy a yacht." The words landed like a blade in her chest, each syllable slicing through the love she'd woven into her future. He'd played her, used her name, her work, her heart, for a scheme as cold as the marble beneath her feet. The betrayal was a living thing, coiling around her, but it didn't break her. It forged her. Kendra's eyes burned, but no tears fell. She was an architect, a master of structures, of systems built and broken. Oliver had handed her the blueprint of his deceit, and she would redraw it into his ruin. Her hand steadied as she slipped her phone from a hidden pocket in her gown. A text to her cousin Marcus, the tech genius running the hall's audiovisuals, was all it took. "Marcus, I need you. Now. Cut the main mic and route my phone's audio to the hall's speakers. Trust me. His reply was instant. Got you, sis. She inhaled, the air sharp with purpose. Her hair, sleek and unyielding, fell perfectly as she adjusted her veil, her smile a crafted mask of serenity. The organ's prelude swelled, and she stepped back toward the hall, no longer a bride but a reckoning. The grand doors loomed ahead, ready to open. The guests rose, their eyes fixed on her, unaware of the storm she carried. Oliver stood at the altar, oblivious, his smile a perfect lie. Kendra's heart no longer beat for love. It pulsed with the rhythm of war. Each step down the aisle, her gown trailing like armor, her hair a banner of defiance, was a declaration. She met his gaze, her smile unwavering, lethal in its sweetness. You look stunning, he whispered as she reached him. So do you, she replied, her voice a velvet blade, her eyes promising ruin. The city's elite watched, believing they were witnessing a union. They were wrong. Kendra Marshall was about to build something far greater than a marriage, a legacy born from betrayal's ashes. What would she do next? How would she turn his words against him? The hall held its breath, and so did the world. Kendra Marshall stood beside Oliver, her smile a flawless mask, her long silken hair catching the light like a cascade of midnight. The organ's final notes faded, and the officiant, a silver-haired man with a voice like warm oak, began his opening words. We gather today in the heart of our city, but Kendra's mind was a fortress, her thoughts racing not toward vows but toward vengeance. Oliver's hand brushed hers, a gesture meant to charm, but it felt like ice against her skin. His words from the old council chamber echoed in her skull. Temporary, naive, a golden ticket. Each syllable fueled her resolve, a fire stoked by betrayal. She glanced at him, his eyes gleaming with the confidence of a man who believed he'd won. He had no idea the ground beneath him was about to crack. The officiant's voice droned on, but Kendra's focus shifted to the crowd. City councilors sat in the front row, their faces alight with pride for her, unaware of the serpent at her side. Investors in tailored suits whispered about the harbor redevelopment deal, a project tied to her foundation and Oliver's scheme. Her cousin Marcus stood at the back, his fingers poised over the audio-visual controls, his nods subtle but certain. She'd always trusted Marcus, his quiet brilliance a mirror to her own. Now he was her weapon. Her phone, tucked against her thigh, held the recording of Oliver's damning words, a ticking bomb she'd detonate at the perfect moment. But timing was everything. She needed the room's full attention, every ear primed for the truth. Kendra raised a hand, delicate yet commanding, silencing the officiant mid-sentence. A ripple of confusion spread through the hall, murmurs rising like a distant tide. Oliver's smile faltered, his brow creasing. Kendra, he whispered, his tone sharp with unease. She turned to him, her eyes locking onto his, her smile unwavering, but edged with a cold fire. Patience, darling, she said softly, her voice a blade wrapped in silk. The guests leaned forward, sensing a shift in the air, their curiosity a palpable weight. Kendra stepped forward, her gown rustling, her hair flowing like a dark banner. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice clear and resonant, cutting through the hall's vastness. I'm afraid there's been a change of plans. Gasps punctuated the silence. A councilwoman clutched her pearls. An investor's glass paused mid-sip. Oliver's hand twitched, his composure cracking like thin ice. Kendra, what are you doing? He hissed, low enough for only her to hear. She ignored him, her gaze sweeping the crowd. Each face a brick in the legacy she'd built, and the one she was about to forge anew. This isn't a wedding anymore, she continued, her tone steady but electric. It's a revelation. I invite you all to join me at the main stage for an announcement that will redefine our city's future. Her words hung heavy, a promise and a threat. The guests exchanged glances, some rising hesitantly, others already moving toward the stage at the hall's far end. Oliver grabbed her arm, his grip tight, his voice a low growl. Don't do this, Kendra. You'll regret it. She met his stare, her eyes blazing with a fury that made him flinch. Oh, Oliver, she murmured, her smile lethal. The only regret here will be yours." She pulled free, her hair swaying as she turned, leading the procession like a queen to a battlefield. The crowd followed, drawn by her magnetic presence, their whispers a chorus of intrigue. Marcus caught her eye from the control booth, his fingers ready. She gave a subtle nod, her heart pounding not with fear but with purpose. The main stage loomed, a platform where mayors had sworn oaths and history had been written. Tonight it was Kendra's domain. She ascended the steps, her gown a cascade of ivory, her hair a silken crown. The crowd settled, their eyes fixed on her, the air thick with anticipation. Oliver trailed behind, his face pale, his confidence unraveling. Trevor, lingering near the back, looked ready to bolt. Kendra took the microphone, her fingers steady, her voice a clarion call. "Thank you for staying," she said, her words echoing through the hall. "Many of you know me as the architect of the Marshall Heritage Foundation. You trusted me with the harbor redevelopment. Tonight you'll learn why that trust was tested and how it will be redeemed." She paused, letting the silence build, her gaze sweeping the faces of allies and skeptics alike. "Oliver Prescott had a vision for this project," she said, her tone deceptively calm. "A very specific vision. I think it's time we all heard it directly from him." She nodded to Marcus. The hall's speakers crackled, and Oliver's voice, smug, cruel, damning, filled the space. "The Marshall Heritage Foundation is our golden ticket. Her name opens doors. Kendra, she's temporary." Each word was a hammer, shattering his facade. Gasps erupted. A counselor's face darkened with fury. An investor dropped his pen, stunned. Trevor shrank into the shadows, his cowardice laid bare. Oliver stood frozen, his eyes wide with panic. Kendra turned to him, her smile a guillotine. "Anything to add, darling?" she asked, her voice sweet venom. The crowd's murmurs swelled, a tide of outrage. She held their attention, her presence commanding, her hair a dark halo under the stage's lights. This was no longer about a wedding, it was about justice. But Kendra wasn't done. She'd exposed his lies, but the real work was just beginning. What would she build from this wreckage? How would she turn betrayal into triumph? The hall waited, breathless, for her next move. Kendra Marshall stood alone on the stage, her long, silken hair gleaming under the spotlights. A dark cascade that seemed to absorb the room's electric tension. The echo of Oliver's recorded confession still hung in the air, a venomous fog that had silenced the crowd. Faces in the audience, counselors, investors, community leaders, were frozen in a spectrum of shock and fury. Oliver remained rooted at the foot of the stage, his once charming facade now a mask of desperation, his eyes darting as if seeking an escape that didn't exist. Kendra's gaze swept over him, cold and unyielding, before returning to the sea of guests. Her voice, when she spoke again, was a steady flame, burning through the haze of betrayal. "That," she declared, "was the vision of a man who thought he could steal our city's future. I'm here to offer a different one." The crowd leaned in, captivated, their outrage shifting to anticipation. Kendra's presence was magnetic, her ivory gown a stark contrast to the storm she wielded. She let the silence stretch, a deliberate pause that pulled every eye to her. "The harbor redevelopment was meant to be a beacon for this city," she continued, her words measured but charged with purpose. "A project to uplift our communities, to build homes, not just towers," but Oliver saw it as a piggy bank for his greed. A murmur rippled through the hall, heads nodding, eyes narrowing at the man who dared to betray their trust. Kendra's hair swayed as she turned slightly, addressing the counselors directly. "You believed in me, in the Marshall Heritage Foundation. Tonight I renew that promise, not with words but with action." She stepped forward, her movements deliberate, each click of her heels on the stage a metronome of resolve. "I'm announcing the Phoenix Initiative," she said, her voice rising like a tide. "From the ashes of this betrayal, we will build something unbreakable, a community-driven redevelopment that doubles the city's initial investment. I will personally fund half of it, ensuring every dollar is transparent, every step accountable." Gasps erupted, followed by a swell of applause. A councilwoman in the front row stood, clapping fiercely, her eyes shining with pride. Others followed, the sound building into a roar that shook the hall's ancient walls. Kendra raised a hand not to quiet them, but to channel their energy. This isn't just about the harbor, she said. It's about us, our values, our resilience, our future. Oliver's face twisted, his voice breaking through the din. Kendra, stop this! You're making a mistake! His words were desperate, a drowning man's plea. But they only fueled her fire. She turned to him, her smile a blade of ice. The only mistake was yours, Oliver, she said, loud enough for the microphone to carry her words to every corner. You thought my passion was naive, my trust a weakness. You were wrong. The crowd's applause surged again, a tidal wave of support that drowned his protest. Trevor, slinking toward the exit, froze under the weight of accusing stares. Kendra's eyes flicked to him briefly, a silent promise that he wouldn't escape unscathed. She turned back to the audience, her voice softening but no less commanding. The Phoenix Initiative will prioritize local workers, sustainable designs, and spaces that belong to the people, not the highest bidder. We'll create schools, parks, homes, places where our children can dream, not just survive. Her words painted a vision so vivid, so tangible, that the crowd seemed to see it rising before them. A young community leader in the back wiped tears from her eyes, nodding fiercely. An investor, once skeptical, scribbled notes, his face alight with possibility. Kendra's hair, sleek and unyielding, framed her like a crown as she spoke, each strand catching the light as if the city itself anointed her. But she wasn't finished. This initiative isn't just my pledge, she said, her voice dropping to a fierce whisper that somehow filled the hall. It's a call to every one of you. Join me. Hold me accountable. Let's build a legacy that outlives us all. The crowd erupted, some standing, others shouting affirmations. A counselor called out, "We're with you, Kendra." The energy was electric, a shared fire that burned away the sting of Oliver's betrayal. She glanced at Marcus, who gave a thumbs up from the booth, his grin wide. He'd not only played the recording, but was now streaming her speech live, ensuring the city, maybe the world, would witness this moment. Oliver took a step toward the stage, his face flushed with panic. "You can't do this," he shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the crowd's fervor. Kendra didn't flinch. "You built your empire on lies, Oliver," she said, her tone final. "I'm building mine on truth." Security guards appeared, their presence quiet but firm, guiding Oliver toward the exit. His polished shoes scuffed the marble, each step a testament to his fall. The crowd parted, their eyes cold as he was led out. A king dethroned in the city he'd sought to plunder. Kendra stood tall, her heart pounding with triumph, not vengeance. She'd turned his betrayal into a catalyst, his lies into a foundation for something greater. But questions lingered. How would she navigate the fallout? Could she trust the city to rally behind her? And what of Trevor, still lurking in the shadows? The Phoenix Initiative was born, but its flames were just beginning to rise. The crowd waited, hungry for her next words as the city held its breath. Kendra Marshall stood resolute on the stage, her long, silken hair a dark halo under the blazing lights, her ivory gown a testament to the armor she'd forged from heartbreak. The crowd's roar still echoed, a living pulse of support that reverberated through the central hall. Oliver's expulsion had left a void, but Kendra filled it with her vision, her voice a beacon cutting through the lingering shock. The Phoenix Initiative had ignited a spark, and the faces before her, counselors, community leaders, even skeptical investors, were alight with a shared hunger for change. Yet beneath her poised exterior, Kendra felt the weight of what lay ahead. She'd toppled a king, but the kingdom was far from secure. Trevor's shadow lingered at the hall's edge, and whispers of doubt could still unravel her triumph. She tightened her grip on the microphone, her resolve a steel beam in her core. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady, warm yet commanding. "Your belief in the Phoenix Initiative is the foundation we'll build on. But foundations require more than words. They demand action, accountability, and truth." The crowd nodded, some leaning forward, others scribbling notes. A young woman in the third row, a community organizer Kendra recognized, clutched a notebook, her eyes fierce with inspiration. "Starting tomorrow," Kendra continued, The Marshall Heritage Foundation will open its books to public audit. Every dollar, every decision will be transparent. We'll host town halls to hear your voices, because this project belongs to you. Applause broke out again, softer but no less fervent, a promise of partnership. She stepped closer to the stage's edge, her hair swaying like a pendulum of purpose. "But I need more than your applause," she said, her tone sharpening. "I need your scrutiny. Challenge me. Push me. Ensure this city rises as one." Her eyes locked on a counselor, Miss Eleanor Hayes, whose sharp gaze had always tested Kendra's proposals. Eleanor nodded, a rare smile breaking her stern facade. The gesture was a small victory, but it fueled Kendra's fire. She wasn't just rebuilding the harbor. She was rebuilding trust, brick by brick, in a city bruised by deceit. A sudden movement caught her eye. Trevor, Oliver's accomplice, edged closer to the exit, his face pale, his hands fidgeting. Kendra's gaze pinned him like a spotlight. "And let's be clear," she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "No one who betrays this city will walk away unscathed." The crowd turned, heads swiveling to follow her stare. Trevor froze, his attempt at stealth crumbling under the weight of their scrutiny. Whispers spread. "That's his friend, the one in the recording." A security guard stepped toward him, and Trevor raised his hands, a weak surrender. "I didn't mean," he stammered, but Kendra cut him off with a raised hand, her silence more damning than words. "Let's focus on what's ahead," she said, redirecting the crowd's energy. "The Phoenix Initiative will hire local workers first, carpenters, electricians, designers from our neighborhoods. We'll partner with schools to train the next generation, ensuring our youth inherit not just jobs but skills." Her words painted a future so vivid it felt within reach. A man in the back, a union leader with weathered hands, stood and clapped, his face etched with pride. Others joined, the sound a heartbeat of solidarity. Kendra's heart swelled, but she tempered it. She knew the road ahead was fraught. Oliver's allies still lurked, and funding her pledge would stretch her resources thin. She glanced at Marcus, who was still in the control booth, his fingers dancing over the console. He'd turned her moment of vengeance into a citywide broadcast, and now social media was ablaze with Agenar's Phoenix Initiative. Kendra's lips curved slightly. She hadn't planned for this to go viral, but Marcus's instincts had amplified her voice. "We're not just building structures," she said, her voice rising. "We're building hope, a harbor where families thrive, where dreams aren't priced out. Who's with me?" The crowd erupted, a thunderous affirmation that shook the hall. A teenage girl in the audience, her braids adorned with beads, raised a fist, her eyes shining with possibility. Kendra nodded at her, a silent vow to deliver, but doubt gnawed at the edges of her triumph. Oliver's network was vast. Investors, tech moguls, even council members who'd backed his deals. Would they retaliate? And Trevor, his nervous glances, suggested he knew more than he'd let on. Kendra's mind raced, calculating risks like blueprints. She needed allies, fast. She scanned the crowd, spotting Dr. Lena Carter, a philanthropist who'd mentored her early career. Lena's nod was subtle but firm, a lifeline Kendra would seize later. For now, she had to close this moment, cement her victory before the cracks could show. "This is our city," she declared, her voice a clarion call. "Not a playground for the greedy, but a home for the dreamers. The Phoenix Initiative starts tonight, and it starts with us." The crowd rose, their applause a tidal wave. Kendra stepped back, her hair catching the light like a crown of fire. Security had escorted Trevor out, his protest lost in the roar. Marcus flashed a grin, his work done for now. Kendra exhaled, her heart a mix of triumph and trepidation. She'd laid the first stone, but the structure was far from complete. Who would challenge her next? What secrets did Oliver's empire still hide? The city watched, and so did the world, as Kendra's fire burned brighter. Kendra Marshall stepped off the stage, her long, silken hair catching the dying echoes of the crowd's applause like a dark sail in a storm. The central hall thrummed with energy, the air charged with the aftershock of her declaration. The Phoenix Initiative had taken root, its promise a beacon for the city's dreamers. But Kendra knew the ground beneath her was still unsteady. Oliver was gone, scored it out like a fallen tyrant, and Trevor's retreat had left a bitter taste, his nervous glances hinting at deeper secrets. The crowd's fervor was a shield, but it wouldn't protect her from the shadows of Oliver's network, powerful players who'd bankrolled his schemes and might now see her as a threat. Her ivory gown felt heavier now, less armor and more a reminder of the wedding that never was. Yet her resolve burned brighter than ever. As she descended, hands reached out. Counselors, activists, even strangers, their faces alight with admiration. "You've changed everything, Kendra," said Ms. Eleanor Hayes, the councilwoman whose approval was hard-won. Her grip was firm, her eyes sharp with respect. Kendra nodded, her smile warm but guarded. "We've only started, Eleanor," she replied, her voice steady despite the churn in her chest. She scanned the crowd for Dr. Lena Carter, her mentor, whose subtle nod earlier had been a lifeline. Lena stood near a marble pillar, her silver hair gleaming, her expression a mix of pride and caution. Kendra made a mental note. She'd need Lena's counsel to navigate the political minefield ahead. The hall buzzed as guests mingled, their conversations a tapestry of awe and speculation. "She's unstoppable," a young organizer whispered to her colleague. "But what about Prescott's investors?" another muttered, glancing toward a cluster of suited men in the corner. Kendra caught their stares, cold, calculating, the kind that measured her not as a visionary but as an obstacle. She straightened, her hair falling like a cascade of defiance, and moved through the crowd, her presence parting it like a blade. Marcus met her halfway, his grin boyish despite the night's wait. "You're trending worldwide, sis," he said, showing her his phone. Tori Phoenix Initiative was climbing, clips of her speech flooding social media. "You're a legend." "Not yet," Kendra said, her voice low, her eyes scanning for threats. "Trevor, what did you see when he left?" Marcus's grin faded. He was texting someone, frantic. Looked like he was begging for a lifeline. Kendra's jaw tightened. Trevor was a loose thread, and she couldn't afford to let him unravel her plans. "Keep an eye on his accounts," she said. "If he's talking, I need to know to whom." Marcus nodded, already pulling out his laptop. Her cousin's tech prowess was her ace, but she knew it wasn't enough. Oliver's empire had roots deeper than one recording could uproot. She approached Lena, who greeted her with a warm embrace. "You've lit a fire, Kendra," Lena said, her voice soft but firm. "But fires attract moths and predators." Kendra nodded, her mind racing. "I need your help, Lena. Oliver had backers, people who'll fight to protect their interests." "Who are they?" Lena's eyes narrowed, her gaze drifting to the suited men. "The biggest threat is Victor Langston," she murmured. "Real estate tycoon, silent partner in Oliver's ventures. He's not here, but he'll hear about this. And he won't like it." Kendra's heart sank. Langston's name carried weight. His developments had reshaped entire districts, often at the cost of communities like hers. Before she could press further, a young woman approached, the one with beaded braids who'd raised her fist earlier. "Ms. Marshall," she said, her voice trembling with conviction, "I'm Aisha from the Southside Youth Collective. We want in on the Phoenix Initiative. We've got ideas, workers, heart." Kendra's smile softened, genuine. "Aisha, you're exactly who this is for. Meet me tomorrow at the foundation. Bring your team." Aisha's face lit up, and Kendra felt a spark of hope. The city's youth were her true allies, their dreams the fuel for her vision. But the moment was cut short. A sharp voice broke through the crowd. Counselor Gerald Reed, a longtime skeptic of her foundation. "Bold words, Ms. Marshall," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "But doubling the city's investment? That's a tall order for someone who just lost her fiancé's backing." The crowd hushed, eyes darting between them. Kendra's pulse quickened, but her smile didn't waver. "Counselor Reed," she said, her voice honeyed steel, "my foundation's funds are mine, not Oliver's. And unlike him, I don't build on lies." A ripple of approval spread, but Reed's smirk lingered, a warning of battles to come. As the crowd dispersed, Kendra's mind churned. Langston's shadow loomed, Trevor's secrets festered, and Reed's doubt was a crack in her foundation. She needed to move fast, secure allies, lock down funds, and uncover the full scope of Oliver's network. Lena touched her arm. "Meet me tomorrow," she whispered, We'll map out the players. Kendra nodded, her hair brushing her shoulders like a reminder of her strength. The night had been a victory, but it was only the first. What would Langston do when he learned of her defiance? Could Aisha's passion tip the scales? And what did Trevor know that made him so afraid? The Phoenix Initiative was rising, but its flames would face a storm. Kendra Marshall stood amidst the dispersing crowd, her long, silken hair a dark cascade that caught the fading light of the central hall, a silent testament to her unyielding strength. The echoes of her triumph still lingered, the Phoenix Initiative now a rallying cry that pulsed through the city's veins. Yet as the guests drifted toward the exits, their voices a hum of awe and ambition, Kendra felt the weight of her new crown, not one of gold, but of responsibility. The night had been hers, a battlefield where she'd slain Oliver's deceit and ignited a movement. But the war was far from won. Victor Langston's name, whispered by Lena, loomed like a storm cloud, and Trevor's frantic escape hinted at secrets yet to be unearthed. Counselor Reed's skepticism was a splinter in her resolve, and Kendra knew she had to move swiftly to solidify her victory before it crumbled. She caught Lena's eye across the hall, the older woman's silver hair glinting as she nodded toward a side alcove. Kendra moved through the thinning crowd, her ivory gown trailing like a banner, her presence still commanding attention. A few guests paused to offer congratulations, their words warm but fleeting. "You've given us hope, Ms. Marshall," said a union leader, his calloused hand gripping hers. Kendra smiled, her heart warmed by his sincerity, but her mind was already mapping the next steps. She needed Lena's insight, Marcus's tech wizardry, and Aisha's grassroots fire to turn her vision into reality. The Phoenix Initiative was a promise, but promises could break under pressure. In the alcove, Lena waited, her expression a blend of maternal pride and steely pragmatism. "You've stirred a hornet's nest, Kendra," she said, her voice low, urgent. "Langston's not just a financier, he's a puppet master. He bankrolled Oliver's deals, and he's got half the council in his pocket." Kendra's jaw tightened, her hair brushing her shoulders as she nodded. "Who's he got?" she asked, her tone sharp but controlled. Lena's eyes flicked to the hall, where Counselor Reed lingered, his smirk a shadow in the crowd. "Reed's one of them. He's been pushing Langston's developments for years. Discreetly, of course. There are others. I'll get you names, but you need to move fast. Langston doesn't forgive defiance." Kendra's mind raced, her architect's instincts sketching a blueprint of alliances and threats. "I need a meeting with the council's finance committee," she said. "Tomorrow. Can you make it happen?" Lena's smile was grim but approving. "I'll pull strings, but expect pushback. Reed will try to undermine you." Kendra nodded, her resolve hardening. "Let him try. I've got the city's eyes on me now." Lena's gaze softened. "You do, but eyes can turn. Keep Aisha close. Her people are your backbone." Kendra felt a surge of gratitude. Lena's wisdom was a compass, guiding her through the storm she'd unleashed. As Lena slipped away to make calls, Kendra's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Trevor's phone pinged a burner number, traced it to a downtown penthouse. "Langston's territory. Be careful." Her pulse quickened. Trevor was already running to Langston, a rat fleeing a sinking ship. She typed back, "Dig deeper. I need everything. Texts, emails, anything tying him to Langston." Marcus's reply was instant. "On it." Kendra pocketed her phone, her eyes scanning the hall. The last guests were leaving, but Aisha approached, her beaded braids clicking softly, her face alight with purpose. "Ms. Marshall, my team's ready," she said. "We've got plans, community gardens, training programs. When do we start?" Kendra's smile was genuine, a rare moment of warmth. "Tomorrow, Aisha, 9 a.m. at the foundation. Bring your best ideas." Aisha's grin was infectious, but her eyes held a question. "What about the suits, the ones Oliver worked with?" Kendra's gaze hardened. "They'll try to stop us, but we're louder, stronger. You with me?" Aisha's fist rose again, fierce. "All the way." Kendra felt a spark of hope. Aisha's passion was a reminder of why she'd fought, why she'd staked everything on this night. But the moment was fleeting. A shadow moved near the hall's entrance. Counselor Reed, lingering, his phone pressed to his ear. His eyes met hers, his smirk a challenge. Kendra held his gaze, her hair falling like a curtain of defiance, her heart a drum of war. Reed was a symptom, Langston the disease. She needed evidence to expose their web, and Trevor was the key. As the hall emptied, Marcus joined her, his laptop tucked under his arm. "Got something," he whispered. "Trevor sent a file to that burner number, encrypted, but I'm cracking it. Looks like financial records." Kendra's breath caught. "Oliver's?" Marcus nodded. "And maybe Langston's." The revelation was a lifeline and a landmine. If those records tied Langston to Oliver's scheme, she could dismantle their empire. But if Langston struck first, her initiative could collapse before it began. "Get me those files," she said, her voice steel. Marcus nodded, already typing. Kendra turned back to the hall, now quiet, the marble floor reflecting her solitary figure. The Phoenix initiative was her crown, but it came with thorns. Could she outmaneuver Langston? Would Aisha's fire be enough? And what did those files hold? The city watched, waiting for her next move, as the shadows closed in. Kendra Marshall stood alone in the now silent central hall, her long silken hair a dark cascade that seemed to hold the weight of the night's triumph and its looming threats. The marble floor reflected her solitary figure, a lone architect in a city she'd vowed to rebuild. The Phoenix Initiative had sparked a fire, its flames fanned by the crowd's fervor. But Kendra felt the chill of unseen enemies closing in. Victor Langston's shadow stretched far beyond the hall's walls, his influence a web woven through the city's power structures. Trevor's encrypted file, dangling like a key in Marcus's hands, could unlock the truth or detonate her plans. Counselor Reed's parting smirk lingered in her mind, a reminder that not all battles were fought on stages. Her ivory gown, once a symbol of love, now felt like a shroud of defiance, but she wore it with the grace of a warrior queen. As she stepped toward the exit, her heels echoed in the vast emptiness, each sound a heartbeat of resolve. Outside, the city pulsed with life, unaware of the storm she'd unleashed. Her phone buzzed. Marcus again. Files almost cracked. Looks like offshore accounts tied to Langston's shell companies. "Meet me at the loft in 30. Kendra's breath caught, her mind racing. Offshore accounts meant more than Oliver's greed. They hinted at a conspiracy that could implicate half the city's elite. She typed back, "I'm coming. Stay safe." Marcus was her lifeline, but his digging put him in Langston's crosshairs. She needed to protect him and herself while turning this evidence into a weapon. The cool night air hit her as she stepped outside, her hair catching the breeze like a banner of purpose. Aisha waited by the steps, her beaded braids glinting under the streetlights, her eyes fierce with determination. "Ms. Marshall, I got my team on board," she said, her voice brimming with energy. "We're ready to pitch ideas tomorrow. Community centers, job programs, the works." Kendra's smile was tired but genuine. "You're a force, Aisha," she said. "Bring everything you've got. We're building this together." Aisha's grin widened, but her gaze flicked to the shadows. "Those suits, Langston's people, they're watching, aren't they?" Kendra nodded, her expression hardening. "They are, but we're watching back." Aisha hesitated, then lowered her voice. "I heard rumors. Langston's got dirt on people, even counselors. Be careful, okay?" Kendra's heart tightened. Aisha's instincts were sharp, her warning a mirror to Lena's. "I will," she promised, her hand grazing Aisha's shoulder. "Get home safe. We've got work to do." Aisha nodded, disappearing into the night, her energy a spark Kendra clung to. But as she turned toward her car, a figure emerged from the shadows. Counselor Reed, his coat flapping in the wind, his eyes glinting with malice. "Bold move, Ms. Marshall," he said, his voice oily. "But you're playing a dangerous game. Langston doesn't lose." Kendra's pulse quickened, but her face remained a mask of steel. "Neither do I, Reed," she said, her voice low, lethal. "If Langston's got you on a leash, you might want to rethink your loyalty." Reed's smirk faltered, his eyes narrowing. "You're out of your depth," he spat, but his voice betrayed a flicker of fear. He turned and vanished into the night, leaving Kendra with a chill that wasn't from the air. Reed's bravado was a facade, but it confirmed her fears. Langston's reach was vast, and she was a target. She slid into her car, her mind a blueprint of strategy. The file was her best shot, but she needed allies to wield it. At Marcus's loft, a converted warehouse lit by neon and screens, Kendra found him hunched over his laptop, his fingers flying. "Got it," he said without looking up. "The file's a ledger. Transfers from your foundation to Langston's offshore accounts, funneled through Oliver's tech firm. It's enough to bury them both." Kendra's heart raced, her architect's mind seeing the structure of their deceit. "Any names tied to it?" she asked. Marcus's eyes darkened. "Reed's on the list. So are two other counselors. Langston's been buying votes for years." The revelation was a grenade, but Kendra's resolve didn't waver. "We need to verify it," she said, "and we need it public, untouchable." Marcus nodded, but his voice was tense. "Langston's got people watching my servers. I'm good, but they're close." Kendra's stomach knotted. She'd put Marcus in danger, and the guilt stung. "Get it to Lena," she said. "She'll know who to trust in the press." Marcus hesitated, his eyes searching hers. "You sure about this, sis? Once this drops, there's no going back." Kendra's smile was fierce, her hair falling like a curtain of defiance. "I don't want to go back." As she left the loft, the city skyline loomed, a testament to her designs and her battles. Langston's empire was cracking, but he'd fight dirty. Could she trust Lena's press contacts? Would Aisha's grassroots movement hold against the backlash? And what would Reed do to save himself? The Phoenix Initiative was a beacon, but its light drew predators. Kendra's fire burned on, but the night was far from over. Kendra Marshall drove through the city's neon-lit arteries, her long, silken hair a dark cascade against the leather seat, a silent emblem of her unyielding resolve. The skyline loomed beyond her windshield, a mosaic of her architectural triumphs now shadowed by the battle ahead. Marcus's revelation, Langston's offshore accounts tied to her foundation, implicating Reed and other counselors, burned in her mind like a blueprint etched in fire. The Phoenix Initiative was her beacon, but its light had drawn predators, and Victor Langston was no ordinary foe. His empire, built on coercion and greed, was a fortress she'd have to dismantle brick by brick. Her ivory gown, still clinging to her frame, felt like a relic of a life she'd burned to ashes in the central hall. Tonight she was no bride. She was a warrior, and the city was her battlefield. Her phone buzzed as she pulled into the foundation's parking lot, a sleek glass building she'd designed to embody hope. A text from Lena. "Finance committee meeting set for 10 a.m. Reed's pushing back, but I've got 3 allies on board. Be ready." Kendra's jaw tightened. Reed's resistance was expected, but his ties to Langston made him dangerous. She replied, "Thanks, Lena. Send me the names of the allies." She needed every advantage, every ally vetted, to counter Langston's influence. Another buzz. Marcus. "Ledgers verified. Sent a copy to Lena's press contact, encrypted. Langston's team tried to hack me, blocked them, but they're pissed." Kendra's heart skipped. Marcus was holding the line, but the risk to him gnawed at her. "Stay offline tonight," she texted back. "We'll plan the drop tomorrow." Inside the foundation, the quiet was a stark contrast to the hall's roar. Her office, lined with blueprints and awards, felt like a sanctuary, but she had no time for respite. She sank into her chair, her hair falling like a curtain as she opened her laptop. Marcus's file, now decrypted, stared back. A ledger detailing millions siphoned from her foundation, through Oliver's firm, to Langston's accounts. Names leaped out. Reed, Counselor Diane Patel, and Counselor James Whitaker. Each had voted for Langston's developments, their pockets lined with bribes disguised as campaign funds. The evidence was damning, but exposing it would spark a firestorm. Kendra leaned back, her mind racing. She needed to time the release perfectly. Too soon, and Langston could bury it. Too late, and he'd strike first. A knock at the door jolted her. Aisha stood there, her beaded braids catching the light, her face a mix of excitement and nerves. "Couldn't sleep," Aisha said, stepping inside. "My team's buzzing about tomorrow. We've got designs, sketches for community centers, training hubs. Can I show you? Kendra's smile softened, Aisha's energy a spark in the dark. Show me, she said, gesturing to a table. Aisha spread out hand-drawn plans, vibrant with color and ambition. Green spaces, tech labs, affordable housing woven into the harbor's fabric. This is what the Phoenix Initiative means, Aisha said, her voice fierce. Real homes, real futures. Kendra's heart swelled. It's perfect, Aisha. You're leading the pitch tomorrow. Aisha's eyes widened. Me? In front of the council? Kendra nodded, her voice firm. You're the voice of the South Side. They need to hear you. Aisha's grin was electric, but her brow furrowed. What about Langston's people? They'll try to shut us down, won't they? Kendra's gaze hardened. They'll try. But we've got something they don't, truth. Aisha nodded, her fist clenching with resolve. As she left, Kendra felt a surge of hope. Aisha's passion was a cornerstone, but the council meeting would be a crucible. Reed and his allies would fight dirty, and Langston's shadow loomed large. Her phone rang. Lena, her voice tight. Kendra, we've got a problem. Reed's pushing a motion to freeze your foundation's funds, claiming mismanagement. He's got Patel and Whitaker backing him. Kendra's blood ran cold. It was a preemptive strike. Langston's hand behind Reed's puppet strings. Can you stall it? She asked, her voice steel. I'm trying, Lena said, but you need to be at that meeting with ironclad proof. Use the ledger, but carefully. Langston's got lawyers who eat evidence for breakfast. Kendra's mind raced, her architect's instincts mapping the battlefield. I'll be ready, she said, hanging up. She opened the ledger again, her eyes scanning the numbers. The transfers were meticulous, hidden in shell companies, but Marcus's annotations tied them to Langston's empire. If she presented this to the council, it could bury Reed and his allies. But Langston would retaliate. Her thoughts were interrupted by a new email from Marcus. Found a second file on Trevor's phone. Audio. Langston and Oliver, planning to frame you for fraud if you got too close. Sending it now. Kendra's breath caught. The audio was dynamite, but using it would paint a target on her back. She played it, Langston's gravelly voice chilling. If Kendra digs, we pin the theft on her. She'll take the fall. The stakes were higher than ever. Kendra stood, her hair falling like a shield, her resolve unbreakable. Tomorrow's meeting would be her stand, not just for the Phoenix Initiative, but for her city, her legacy. Could she outmaneuver Langston's legal machine? Would Aisha's voice sway the council? And what price would Marcus pay for his loyalty? The night held its breath, waiting for Kendra's next move. Kendra Marshall's journey in the Central Hall was more than a moment. It was a spark that set a city ablaze with hope. From the ashes of Oliver's betrayal, she forged the Phoenix Initiative, a testament to resilience, truth, and community. Her long, silken hair, a symbol of her unyielding strength, framed a vision that turned a wedding into a revolution. Victor Langston's shadow looms, and the fight is far from over. But Kendra's fire, fueled by Aisha's passion, Marcus's brilliance, and Lena's wisdom, burns brighter than ever. The city watches, its heart beating with hers, as she builds not just structures, but a legacy that defies greed. Thank you for joining Kendra's saga, for standing with her as she turned pain into power. Your presence here means the world. It's your energy that keeps this story alive. What do you think of Kendra's triumph? How do you see her facing Langston's empire? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. Your predictions, your passion, fuel this journey. Did Aisha's sketches inspire you? Does Marcus's courage resonate? Drop a line and let's keep the fire burning. Subscribe to stay with Kendra as she navigates the storms ahead. More battles, more revelations await. Until next time, thank you for believing in this city, in this story, and in the power of truth. We'll meet again soon, ready to build the future together. What's your next move?